The Young and the Restless Spoilers. Cain Ashby had always walked the fine line between redemption and ruin, but now he seemed determined to lean fully into the darker side of his nature. His empire was growing not by charm or business acumen but by manipulation and innovation that bordered on illegality. After weeks of inner deliberation, he made a decision that sent shockwaves through the ranks of his fragile alliances. Billy Abbott, once a partner he had tolerated out of necessity, was now seen as nothing more than a liability. Cain's patience had worn thin with Billy's recklessness, his erratic choices, and his inability to follow through with discipline. Without hesitation, Cain cut him loose, delivering the news in a manner that was cold and surgical. The dismissal was not only humiliating but infuriating to Billy, who could not fathom why Cain would retain the likes of Phyllis Summers and Michael Baldwin over him. The sting of betrayal burned all the more because Billy prided himself on his Abbott name, on his supposed value, and yet Cain saw more worth into allies who were willing to bend rules, play games, and risk everything to win. For Billy, the rejection was not just about business, it was about his identity, his pride, and the sense that he had once again been discarded like yesterday's news. Michael Baldwin, for his part, was far less comfortable with the arrangement than Cain imagined. A man who had spent his career navigating the letter of the law, Michael understood the gray areas better than most, but he also knew when gray had turned into black. Cain's ventures were cloaked in innovation but reeked of illegality, built on schemes designed to slip through the cracks of corporate oversight. Michael could see the potential fallout, could feel the noose tightening around anyone associated with Cain's empire, and deep down, he feared that his own name, his own reputation, would be dragged down into the mire. At night he found no rest, his mind racing with visions of scandal, disbarment, and the ruin of everything he had built with Lauren. It was Amanda Sinclair who tried to soothe him, her voice calm, her perspective pragmatic. She told him that sometimes the world required compromises, that bending the rules could serve the greater good, and that law itself was not always synonymous with justice. But even as Amanda's logic wove its way into his mind, Michael's instincts screamed that Cain was leading him toward a cliff's edge. Meanwhile, Sally Spectro was caught in her own downward spiral with Billy. What had once been a partnership of passion and promise was now unraveling thread by thread. She had tolerated his volatility for months, clinging to the hope that somewhere beneath his chaos there was still a man she could rely on. But now, her patience was exhausted. He had promised her control of Abbott Communications, only to betray her by persuading Jack to withdraw his funding. The startup she had poured her heart into was destroyed before it could even take flight, sabotaged by the very man who had vowed to support her. To Sally, it was the ultimate betrayal not just of trust but of ambition, of the dream she had clung to so fiercely in the face of so much adversity. Every time she looked at Billy, she no longer saw a partner, she saw the wreckage of what could have been, and the pain of what was lost. It was in this vulnerable state that Sally confided in Jack Abbott about Cain's most dangerous weapon yet, the AI program. Her voice trembled with urgency as she explained how Cain had developed a system capable of infiltrating and dismantling any company's infrastructure without the need for human interference. It was corporate theft on a level never before imagined, a digital predator that could consume businesses silently, invisibly, until it was too late. Jack listened with a growing sense of dread, his face pale as he realized the implications. If Cain wanted access to Abbott, if he set his sights on the Abbott family's legacy, there was little they could do to stop him. With Phyllis by his side, lending her cunning and her familiarity with Abbott's weaknesses, and Michael unwillingly dragged along by Cain's manipulations, the threat became not just real but imminent. Jack's mind raced with questions of loyalty, strategy, and survival, but beneath it all was a cold, hard truth: had no clear plan to stop Cain. Phyllis's involvement only deepened the sense of betrayal. She had always been a wild card, brilliant and resourceful but prone to aligning herself with dangerous forces when it suited her ambitions. For Cain to keep her while discarding Billy was a move that underscored where his priorities lay. Phyllis understood systems, she understood vulnerabilities, and with Cain's AI at her disposal, she became a weapon he could unleash at will. Jack, who had spent years oscillating between love, anger, and resentment toward Phyllis, could barely stomach the thought of her working against him yet again. For all his experience, For all his strategic brilliance, he was suddenly facing a battle he had no tools to fight. As if the situation were not already precarious, Sally found herself leaning on Audra Charles, a woman she had once mistrusted but who had become a surprising confidant. Over late-night drinks and hushed conversations, Sally poured out her frustration about Billy, about his failures, his broken promises, and the devastation he had wrought on Abbott Communications. Audra, always sharp, listened with a mixture of sympathy and calculation. To her, Billy's implosion was just another confirmation of what she had always believed, that he was untrustworthy and stable, and destined to sabotage anyone foolish enough to stand beside him. Sally's words were tinged with heartbreak, but Audra's mind was already spinning, turning information into opportunity. She knew that aligning herself with Sally, even superficially, gave her leverage against both Billy and the Abbotts. And leverage was the one currency Audra never ran out of. The fissures were widening across Genoa City. Billy, cast out by Cain and spurned by Sally, was a man adrift, his anger simmering into dangerous obsession. Sally, disillusioned and exhausted, found herself questioning whether any partnership was worth the cost of betrayal. Michael, trapped between loyalty and legality, faced the crushing realization that his choices could destroy his life's work. Jack, haunted by the looming specter of Cain's AI, felt the ground shifting beneath his feet, his family's legacy under siege. And Phyllis, ever unpredictable, reveled in her newfound role as Cain's weapon, knowing full well that the destruction she was helping to unleash would leave scars across every family in the city. At the center of it all, Cain stood like a conductor before an orchestra, guiding chaos with calculated precision. His decision to remove Billy had not been personal, though it cut like a knife. It had been strategic. Cain wanted soldiers who could execute his vision without hesitation, who could embrace the gray and the black without flinching. In Phyllis and Michael, he saw tools to achieve exactly that. And with his AI program ready to be deployed, Cain was no longer just a businessman. He was a predator stalking the heart of Genoa City. The question was not whether he would strike, but when and who would be left standing when he did. Sally Spectra had reached her breaking point. After months of chasing dreams only to see them slip away because of broken promises and unstable partners, she was tired of letting other people determine her fate. Sitting across from Audra Charles, she felt a strange but undeniable kinship. Both women had been burned, both had been cast aside by men who had either underestimated them or dragged them down into chaos, and both now stood at the crossroads of survival and reinvention. Sally's voice was calm but charged with determination as she confessed to Audra that they had each lost to mockmen they could not trust, careers that had been sabotaged, opportunities stolen at the last moment. But loss, she argued, did not have to mean defeat. It could mean rebirth. Sally proposed that they stop waiting for scraps from the Abbotts, the Newmans, or any man in Genoa City, and instead seize control of their own destiny. The idea of founding a new company, run entirely by them, sparked like fire between them. Audra, her eyes gleaming with the prospect of power, leaned in and agreed wholeheartedly. She declared that with their intelligence, ambition, and hunger, failure was not even an option. A company built by two women who had fought their way through betrayal, heartbreak, and manipulation could only rise, not fall. For once, Sally felt the stirrings of hope, and not the fragile hope tied to someone else's promises, but the fierce hope of reclaiming power with her own hands. While Sally and Audra were plotting their future, another storm was gathering on a different front. Claire Newman, caught in the complexities of her own heart, was battling a dilemma that threatened to consume her. Her relationship with Carl Abbott, once filled with excitement and passion, had soured into something suffocating. Claire had tried again and again to explain that she needed space, time to breathe and think, but Carl refused to hear her. His insistence came not from malice but from insecurity, from the desperate fear of losing her. Instead of listening, he doubled down, pressing her relentlessly to accept his proposal, to seal their bond in marriage, as if that commitment could magically solve the cracks already widening between them. Claire felt trapped, her independence slipping away under the weight of Kyle's demands. Every moment she asked for clarity, he answered with pressure. Every time she sought distance, he closed in further. In the void that Kyle's suffocating love created, Holden Novak stepped in quietly, offering the one thing Kyle could not: understanding. Holden did not push or demand, he listened. He gave Claire room to breathe, room to explore her own thoughts without judgment. The more time she spent with him, the more she realized how deeply she craved that freedom. What began as casual conversation grew into something more charged, a closeness that hovered dangerously on the edge of temptation. Claire found herself looking forward to Holden's company, his steady presence a stark contrast to Kyle's turbulence. Yet with every step she took toward Holden, guilt gnawed at her. She knew she was venturing into treacherous territory, a triangle where one wrong move could ignite scandal, heartbreak, and betrayal. The whispers of this triangle began to ripple through Genoa City, fanning the flames of speculation. Fans and onlookers alike wondered how long Claire could resist the pull of Holden, how long she could endure the pressure of Kyle's relentless pursuit. Each interaction with Kyle left her feeling more trapped, more resentful, and each stolen moment with Holden made it harder to imagine turning back. The danger was not only in what she might do, but in what others might see. The walls of Genoa City had ears, and in a town where secrets rarely stayed buried, Claire was playing a game with stakes she might not be prepared to face. Back in the orbit of Sally and Audra, their alliance began to take shape with startling speed. They spent hours sketching out ideas, debating industries, and envisioning a company that would disrupt the very landscape of Genoa City. For Sally, the venture was a chance to prove to herself and to everyone else that she was more than a woman defined by failed romances or fleeting opportunities. For Audra, it was a chance to build something on her own terms, to wield power without apology. Their combined energy was electric, their ambition palpable, and though they came from different worlds and carried different scars, together they felt unstoppable. Yet lurking beneath the surface was an undercurrent of suspicion, as both women knew that partnerships in this city rarely lasted. Trust was a currency easily spent and even more easily broken, and while today they were allies, tomorrow could turn them into rivals. Still, for now, they chose to believe in the strength of their bond, united by the desire to rise above the men who had tried to break them. But the shadow of Billy Abbott loomed heavily over Sally's newfound determination. Billy, reeling from Cain's betrayal and Sally's growing disillusionment, was spiraling into another phase of self-destruct. He wanted to win her back, to prove he could be the man she needed, but his words rang hollow after so many broken promises. Sally's resolve to move forward with Audra hardened every time she remembered how Billy had let her down, how he had dangled power in front of her only to snatch it away. The more Billy tried to claw his way back into her life, the more she felt certain that her future lay not with him but with Audra, and with the dream of a company they could control together. The contrast between these storylinest rising partnership of Sally and Audra, the crumbling relationship of Claire and Kyle painted a vivid picture of Genoa City at its core. Women who had been underestimated were finding their voices, while men consumed by insecurity or obsession were watching their grip slip away. The danger was that such shifts in power always came with consequences. Kyle's pride could not tolerate losing Claire to another man. Billy's ego could not withstand watching Sally move on without him. And the men in positions of true power, like Cain and Victor, would not stand idly by while new players rose to challenge their dominance. As Sally and Audra toasted to their new future, and as Claire wrestled with the growing pull of Holden, Genoa City braced for the fallout. Betrayal, ambition, love, and revenge were once again colliding in the lives of its most powerful families. And in the end, the questions loomed larger than ever. Would Claire betray Kyle for the freedom she craved? Would Sally and Billy ever find a path back to each other, or had their story reached its final, irreversible end?